Hey, Todd. We decided today we're going to talk about what I generously refer to as "thank you for your service" culture. There's been a film called "Thank You for Your Service." It certainly is a colloquial phrase that people have been told, "Hey, I'm gonna say this to somebody if they say they serve in the military." And since, of course, you and I both serve in the military, there have no doubt been hundreds, thousands of times that someone has said to you, "Thank you for your service." And it's not just that interaction. I think it's the entire sentiment around how people who haven't served feel about people who do or have served in the military. And then sort of an entire conversation about civilian military relations that surrounds it. Um, what is your initial take when I say "thank you for your service" culture? What do you think of?
Well, yeah, I do think of thank you, veterans, for your service. I just came from observing my kiddos' kindergarten classroom, and part of the protocol is like the teacher, Miss Alicia, she leaves for 30 minutes, and then I'm there with the kids for 30 minutes, and it was the most exhausting, intense, unwieldy 30 minutes with my kiddo in the room. She literally came back, and I was like, I don't know that I've fully thanked you for just
Your
what
service?
for what you do. Truly, honestly, it was extraordinary contribution being made by kindergarten teachers and other teachers. So it's been narrowly defined in the context of military service. There's so many people that need to get thanked for their service. I think we kind of had the uptake on that around COVID and essential workers, which is entirely evaporated. It's like,
Hmm.
are these people still essential? So there's a whole thing with that. I think I struggle a little bit on the nuance of there's a school of thought, I'm curious where you are, on every form of service in uniform is noble and deserves recognition. And then the reality that some of the jobs are much more intense, static, dangerous, or deployed. And so I think within the veteran community, there's this kind of, I don't know. I feel like there's a cross current doesn't get talked about, which is we are quick to say all service is noble. And so thank you, airmen who served in Central Illinois for 4 years as service equal to someone that forward deployed to Fallujah. And I'm sort of contrarian, being not all forms of service are appreciated, but some are certainly more dangerous and potentially sacrificial than others. And so I don't know.
But is it but
But
is it the life and limb part of it that makes it more laudable, or because the teacher that you're talking about, her life's not at risk necessarily
right.
hopefully in that, that classroom. We'll set aside school shootings for now, which is a whole nother conversation. But her life's not at risk from the kids and the way that she's serving, but it's certainly laudable. And I think that, yeah, that's so I don't know that life and limb is the barometer.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great point. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's life and limit, but I do think it's that you gave more than you received. And I
Mm.
think there are people that on a fact basis, and I might have been one of them, who join the military and objectively get a job that pays better than they could have otherwise had, with benefits, with sort of public acclaim and accolades, without sort of hazardous exposure. And and this is where I'm or you look at the United States Congress, and I'm like, there's this notion of thank you, honor. The notion of sacrifice is I guess tied to service to me. If there was nothing sacrificial in this, I'm like, what was hard about this? This is this is a better job than you should have otherwise maybe gotten, on
Mhm.
a merit basis. And so is it, if it's not sacrificial, can it be service? I don't know. And that's where I guess I look at teachers as a class generally underpaid vis-a-vis their contribution. But that's not a universally true statement. So I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit conflicted, but I do think that it's hard for me to get my head around service if there wasn't a form of sacrifice within that. And the sacrifice may not need to be life and limb, but it should be reputational sacrifice, financial sacrifice, and I feel I deployed to the Persian Gulf, so I guess that, but I feel like I got just the better end of having been in the military. And I don't know how you feel about your time, um, but I think we throw around the terms honorable, we throw around the terms thank you for your service. And I think there's so many people in our society that are doing a lot of things that are not just of service, but also very sacrificial. They're net losing in the spirit of trying to serve the country, including
Mhm.
advocates and volunteers that are not getting paid to try to fix the American experiment. And we aren't sort of quick to say to them, sort of like, thank you for your service.
I mean, look, I think it takes all different sizes, and I think that we actually, again, it's a semantic argument. If we're going to try to define it, yeah, sacrifice. I think is. I don't know if if it's required, but once there is sacrifice, then I think it moves towards being defined as service. I think you actually made a better point with saying like, hey, this is a job you're doing or a role you're taking because it doesn't have to be definitely doesn't have to be a job, but it's a role you're taking for more than pay. Like it's if you are just in this for the paycheck, then it's definitely not service. But then okay, does the output of the job affect the general public in a positive way, right? And a lot of times service needs to be connected to the government in some way, I think. But not always, right? So military service is, public service is, and we're very, and then you get to into national service, which is people who are volunteering for AmeriCorps or things like that. That's definitely service, and they are paid for it. We always used to get in this debate in the sort of in the national service world. People be like, well, it can't be service if you're getting paid because that's like paid volunteerism. And I think that that was an argument against AmeriCorps and national service. And then the immediate retort to that is we have an all volunteer military force and they volunteer to get paid. Like there's there's something in it, like in that threshold that it is more than a job, right? Like, and is more than a typical volunteer role. Cause I don't think just like going down to the food bank on a Sunday is also like service, right? It's a volunteer gig. It's helpful to your community. And all these things are created equal. I mean, I watch, I was watching The Pit recently. I'm a little behind on catching up with the shows that are taking the social zeitgeist by storm. But I've been just starting to watch The Pit, and I just listen to those people, and not just the doctors and the surgeons, but the orderlies and the nurses and the everything else, and everybody. And they're all brilliant, right? And they all know words and language, and quickly are able to come up with. These ways to help and heal people on the spot. And I think that that's a form of service, but it's certainly a job as well. But maybe not every healthcare professional is doing service because, like, not throwing shade on my dermatologist, but she's working a 9 to 5 and she's checking my skin for cancer. I need that. I don't know if it's service, but the ER docs sure seem like it is, right? I compare sometimes military to cops. I'm like, military, like, yeah, we go to combat, we put ourselves in harm's way and bad things can happen. But cops are in this theoretically in harm's way like every single day. Now it doesn't happen nearly as often. Thank God we're not living in like a truly militarized society, although we're getting closer. But cops is a different kind of service. Paramedics are a different kind of service. But the people who are like ready to go, firefighters, and kind of stuff like that. So these first responders for sure, civil servants, national service, military service. But let's get back to the content of the question though, which is, do they all deserve thanks? Because that's actually the interesting thing for me. Like, I don't feel like I need to go up to a firefighter all the time and be like, hey, thanks, man, for being a paramedic, for putting out fires. But I also don't feel like people need to tell me thank you for my service all the time either. And I have some specific rules around it, but I'm curious how you respond to that.
Well, I think I appreciate when someone says to me, thank you for your service, I sort of take it as like a spirit of like, it's a signal that they do want to express appreciation, and they also want to sort of say something about themselves in the process. It's like, and so I try to like reciprocate, like, thank you for being the kind of person that is looking out for people and saying thank you for their service, right? And so there's like this kind of, it's like a feedback loop that kind of happens for the person offering, I think, the sentiment as well. But
the rote rhetoric for some people is thank you for your support, thank you for service. Oh, thank you for your support. And I know people, that's like just what they give back always.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is like in this, I don't have the data. Maybe you have a perspective on this. Like in countries where everyone serves, I would imagine the sort of construct of thank you for service is like meaningless and or not applied. Like I don't think in Israel or Ukraine, I don't know, maybe in Ukraine, I don't know, but or in this country,
I don't think we did it during World War II. I don't think that people were walking around saying thanks for your service.
I don't think it was like thanks for your service. So I think the one kind of edge on thank you for your service is that it implies a country in which some people are doing sort of like hard things in service of the whole and others may not be. And so the need to sort of say thank you is predicated on this notion that like you're doing some people are doing some things that others are not doing. Because if we're all doing it, then like what's the need to sort of like stand in a circle and thank each other for a collective effort?
Because in a weird way, the need to define it, that we're running around and being like, is this person serving? Is that person serving? That need actually doesn't, that only exists maybe because we're trying to figure out who needs to be thanked. And so if we actually just say like, well, people don't necessarily need to be thanked, or, you can be grateful without going through the motions, I think that then it eliminates a little bit the need to define it, specifically.
Uh,
Um, for me, I feel pretty strongly about this. So
I don't. So I'm eager to hear what you think.
I published an op-ed called "You're Welcome for My Service." It was in the Washington Post. It was called "You're Welcome for My Service," and then I believe that was the print title, and then online they changed it to something a little bit more benign. Um, but it was me kind of taking down "Thank you for your service" culture, and I still feel relatively the same way I did then, and maybe even more. Um, kind of opposed to it, because what I don't like, I have no problem with somebody who wants to genuinely express appreciation for something that I have done, whether that's holding a door for them going into, a building, or going to Afghanistan as a platoon leader and getting wounded in combat. Like anything in between, you want to thank me for doing something cool. Pass the salt. Thanks. You're welcome. Got it. But I felt really uncomfortable about it when I was younger, when I was closer, still in uniform, actually. I felt really uncomfortable about it. And I had a mentor of mine say, um, you should think about it differently, and you should just you should reply the way that your mom taught you to reply when someone says thank you. I said, "Say you're welcome." And that felt super weird at the time, right? It was like someone would walk up, "Oh, hell, you were in the military? Thank you for your service." And I'd be like, "You're welcome."
You're welcome.
What
That's a
I
lot,
found,
man.
and now that I'm thinking about it, I want to say it's more than like 15 years ago. It's like 20. We're talking about 2009, 2010. We're talking about just post surge. Like the war in Afghanistan is still raging. It will be for another decade almost. So we're right in the middle of it. And what when I would say you're welcome back then, I would actually get like stink eye. Is what we call in Hawaii, is stink eye. And I've always, my theory has always been, the reason is because they thought they were doing their patriotic duty by thanking me for for my service, and they were chest beating for patting me on the back, and like, I'm a good American, man. I thank every veteran I see for their service. I'm on a streak. I got 74 veterans I met in a row, and everyone I've thanked for their service, and that is my contribution to this war effort and to democracy.
Mhm.
And that's bullshit, quite frankly. And so but I was able to evolve when I started saying you're welcome, it let a bit of an albatross off my neck, right? Because I was uncomfortable. Someone say thank you for your service, I would be like, yeah, thanks for saying that. So I'm thanking somebody for a thank you, which is weird. Or I would say, oh, it's no big deal. And the truth is, if you know my story and have seen the helicopter wreckage, the photos of my helicopter, it was a big deal. And so like I was actually lying to these people when I wasn't responding appropriately. But when I said you're welcome, it was like, yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure. Happy to do it. Those things are true.
Mhm.
And what I realized, and this took years, this wasn't in the op-ed because this took years to realize, when I said you're welcome, I wasn't just acknowledging their gratitude. I was literally welcoming them to asking another question, which is the most important part.
Mm.
And so then they would say, "Oh, well, what branch did you serve in? And what did you do? And where did you go? And what was it like?" Those are the crucial questions.
Uh-huh.
Thanking me for my service means nothing. Asking me about my experience so that you, as a civilian and a voter and an American, so you know more about the military experience, particularly in times of combat, is crucially important. And then I was able to welcome people into that conversation by saying you're welcome. So to this day, I'll say you're welcome and see what they do. And by the way, a lot less stink eye now. I think that people have kind of come around to this. Like, it is not sort of a rote pat on the back, chest beating. My job as a patriot is to say thank you for your service. I think a lot of people take it a little bit more seriously, maybe because we're more distant from those wars, and now
Mhm.
in the midst of another. But
Uh-huh.
I think it is different now, and that's good, because that is the conversation that needs to be happening. The citizens and the electorate need to be in touch with what's happening with our military, and particularly overseas.
Do you wear things that would indicate you're a veteran?
I just big T-shirts that say "I am a veteran," and then on the back it says "Please thank me, Pat here." No,
Or you're welcome?
no, almost. I think almost never. But I work in a space where I'm identified as a veteran quite often professionally, right? Like, it has become my the credibility that I bring with me to the work that I do.
Yeah.
So that comes up a lot. But no, I don't. I have one of those Afghanistan hats. I think I bought it for something very specific, and I doesn't look good on my head, and I don't like wearing it.
Yeah.
Do you? Do you
Yeah.
wear?
No.
You know what I do? Actually, I'll show and tell. I do carry this around. This, I suppose, doesn't identify me as a veteran. This is
Okay.
my dad's, like, map case from Vietnam,
Mhm.
and it kind of fits my laptop. And so when I'm just going, like, run into the coffee shop to go work there, that's what I'll carry around. And so I suppose there's a implied military connection with that OD green canvas bag. But
Yeah.
other than that, I don't think that means I'm a veteran. Plenty of people can, go to the surplus store and get that stuff too.
Yeah. And I think you're saying something sort of cynical,
Always.
which I this is a show for cynical people, which I agree with, which is like, yeah, like the notion of needing to thank people, like, and actually holding up essential workers is like a more relevant recent example. It's like, it sort of is like, let's sort of give public accolade to things in order to maybe evade like a larger responsibility, which is like pay folks more or all serve, or, like it is sort of like, um, I don't know. I'm always interested in symbolism of like standing ovations and or I don't know, ceremonial like recognition of the flag and things like that. Where I'm like, there's a spirit of that which is gratitude, and then there's a spirit of that which is like, it's kind of your example. It's like if I sort of make these public declarations of thank you, then I like thank you essential worker. Like I don't feel implicated and guilty for my not having supported them in the season where they should just get paid more.
Well, look, I
Um,
think the COVID thing is its own, as is everything pandemic related, right? It's its own
mhm,
thing. And in that moment, in those crucial months when we didn't know what was going on, and they were wearing all of the gear all the time and helping the people, and people were dying in front of them,
mhm,
that essential worker thing, that made sense to me.
yeah.
There's an above and beyond there for sure.
Mhm.
I honestly, like, when TSA folks weren't getting paid earlier in 2026, like,
Yeah.
thank them. They're
Yeah,
literally,
right.
that's they're probably serving anyway, just being TSA,
Mhm.
but they're coming to work without pay, and they eventually got paid, right? If they didn't quit. And so they think that's important, as they should. But I heard people thanking them. Thanks for being here. They didn't say thank you for your service. They didn't. I think that we have incorrectly
Yeah,
reserved that for the military in many ways. So thanks for being an essential worker. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for being here today. Because thank you for your service is just the military, and there is a cynicism implied
yeah,
there as well. But here's my question: do you take the 10% discount at Home Depot when you go buy potted plants for your spring garden?
I do.
Me too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Me
I
too.
won't
I
take the
think.
parking spot. I won't take the parking spot, but
Mm,
I'll take a discount. I'm like, it's a corporate policy, and you decided. And I don't know what your motivations are, but
do
like,
you
why would
ask
I?
for it at places that aren't as upfront about it? Would you ever say, if you don't know, like at Home Depot, they do a great job, and you enter your phone number, and then that's it, makes
Yeah.
it easy. Do you ever go and you're like buying a new pair of shoes, and you're like, do you guys have a military or veteran discount?
I If it's a national chain, absolutely. If it's a local business owner, never.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a little bit fair. I hate the parking spot.
Mhm.
There's one where I parked when I take my kid to the pediatrician. There is a parking spot, and it says heroes only.
Yeah.
And I look, the Batmobile is parked right there next to me. So I was like, well, this is obviously who that's for. This is for, no, I will park in that one because I hate it and I think
Yeah.
it's dumb.
It's
That's
also,
that's why I'm like, well, you know what? If you're gonna be stupid, I'm just gonna park here.
well, and it's like interesting because like people have a very contained mental model when they say thank you for your service. And if you talk to like, our sister female veterans,
Mm,
they do not get like there's this sort of like notion of like what people think a veteran looks like, and it's like it's not. Like, women don't get like thank you for your service in the same way that like men do. So there's because people that don't serve assume like a sort of a prototype that probably looks more like you or me, although a little bit more buff, a little bit younger, that they kind of associate as being someone that is in the military. And it's like, actually, it's a lot of different folks. And I think, I mean, I'm interested in like Space Force. Like, what happens if, I mean, the people that run the nuclear safety program for the United States of America, like, they're freaking critical. Um, they're hero, but this is where
right.
I do think that like these terms get bandied around, and it's like, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about with service? What are we talking about with thank you? um what are we trying to appreciate here? I mean, to me, I think there's we need like a refresh on the definition as we approach the 250th, which is like, you gave more than you got.
Sure.
Like, if your first exposure to national service is like flying around in a private plane, I'm like, that's not why are we calling you honorable? Why are we, like, why are we thanking you? It's like, this is like, there are people that are grifting on the enterprise of gratitude. And I'm like, I don't think folks should necessarily automatically be called honorable. I don't think they should automatically be thanked. Like,
Well, it
I
comes
think
back
we
to what
should,
I said, which is the important thing isn't the honor or the gratitude. The important thing is understanding the experience. And so if I meet somebody who is a doctor, I'm not going to automatically thank them for their service. But if I hear a story about them working, 36-hour shifts in the ER during the height of the pandemic, then I'm going to be like,
yeah,
man, thank you for doing that. That's amazing what you did for our community and humanity. And like, so I think that it really is like maybe just reserve the gratitude and the thank you till you actually know what they're thanking them for. I I had to have a really hard conversation recently with one of my clients. We were talking about this. There's a shooting not long ago in Shreveport, Louisiana, and it was a veteran. And he did this thing that I think is horribly named. It's called family annihilation, where he killed 8 kids, 7 of which were his kids, and 8 was his nephew, I believe. And then he died, and it was unclear whether he died by his own. I think they might know now, but a self-inflicted gunshot wound or by the cops, which would be suicide by cop. So, right, he was a veteran. He had been to mental health at the VA, and the whole thing gets really complicated really quickly. But I had to talk to my client and be like, "Hey, well, before we talk about this, I want to make sure you understand that like not all military service and not all veterans are created equal. And I don't know anything about this guy's military career, and I do not want to degrade people's military careers, but." It says that he got out of the military after 6 years in the National Guard as a private. He didn't get promoted. Like he didn't get anywhere. Let's just go out on a limb and say this person who's done a horrendous act probably wasn't the best soldier. Let's just say that. So like when we're trying to say like, oh, did the military turn him into this and blah, blah, blah. And the answer is unequivocally likely no. The military by
no,
itself did not turn him into that. And it probably had nothing to do with it. Um, but and I don't like to get into comparing different people's military service, but only to point out that everybody's military service is really, really different. Not
right,
one better than the other, but can be really, really different. And certainly starting the Guard and Reserve, but also Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Space Force, all different. Coast Guard, which is sort of tangentially military, and then officer enlisted, combat, non-combat. What's your MOS? What did you do? And again, I hate saying that somebody because they're more badass or something, or so many people think they're more badass that they're better than somebody else. Because guess what? The badass people can get nothing done without the other people doing like the intel and the logistics behind the scenes and the
right,
transportation and all that kind of stuff. So like and the food, right? There are people who cook food in the military. Guess what we have to do every single day is eat.
yeah,
And so like you gotta feed the force. So everybody's service is relatively valuable, but not everybody's service is going to lend to the same um, level of awe. And if that awe is correlated to either gratitude or some other sort of dissection, then I think you need to again learn about the experience, know more
yeah.
about it. And I'm happy if you thank that guy for 6 years in the National Guard, um, but just know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it is like yes, and it is like a flattening of identity when we just sort of give a monolithic, like veterans is unified identity, unified experience, unified class. Thank you. And so yeah, something feels like undistinguished in that, like it's just sort of a two-dimensional versus a three-dimensional presentation. I'll leave with this. I think it would be provocative for the America's 250th if instead of we greeted each other with "Thank you for your service," but like we interrogated our fellow citizens, like, "What have you done for America lately?"
Mm.
And like we all had that's citizenship. Like we all ought to have some answer of like, this is what I'm doing to try to keep the project together, move it forward. Like that's a more relevant question, and it because I think there's too many people that like I should not get a blank check just because like I spent 4 years in the military, like therefore I'm good on having done my part, and like no, like there's a continuing obligation and opportunity to serve. And so but yeah, I think we gotta broaden beyond that. I don't know.
So let's make that our next topic. We can actually talk about the role of a citizen or the obligations of citizenship, and then how do they connect to serving community,
We
serving
don't
others
think so.
around you,
Yeah.
serving the country. So I think that there's lots of different ways to do it. But whether or not they deserve a thank you at the end of the day or not,
Yeah.
I do think we all have some sort of obligation to one another and to the society and the nation that we live in. So
Thank you for your service, Chris.
you know what, and you're welcome.
More soon. Bye, buddy.